I looked this up because I realized the link they gave me doesn't work anymore.
Uh-oh. Where's it leading?
WhiteHouse.com. Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. Hey, my name's Will, and joining me, as always, are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Kat. No teasing today. Got it. Kat told me before the show, Will, she's unteasable today, and therefore, I'm going to stand in and make sure you don't tease her.
Yeah, wait a second. Does that mean she is not in the mood to be teased, or is that a challenge?
That's what I was just thinking, like, right? Unteasable. Yeah. That makes it sound like you can say anything
we'll see about
want.
that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
That was not a give it your best shot challenge, no.
All right, instead of teasing Kat, on today's show, we're going to talk about a number of things, all leading up to discussing the Last Starfighter video game that we never got, but we were promised it. And you may not remember why or how we were promised it, but we were. We'll talk about that because it turns out, just like so many films we're talking about this year, it's the 40th anniversary of The Last Starfighter, which premiered on July 13th, 1984, and had all the makings of a blockbuster on paper and even on film. There's no reason this movie should not have been a smashing success, but it wasn't, alas, until... Like many of the films we talk about, it was on video and HBO and became a cult classic, which I think is now just a euphemism for we don't have to pay the people that made it as much as we would have if it were a success in the movie theater.
Yes. That's code for maybe it'll be better later.
Yeah. Anyway, before that, though, we're going to chat about current news stories related to 1980s media, including there's even more 80s nostalgia coming to Dungeons and Dragons. The glass blocks are back.
We're really digging deep.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, should we even do the show today? I mean, what is this? And finally, we're going to talk about, speaking of things we never got, unlike the Last Starfighter video game, which I really, really wanted to play, we're going to talk about the Beverly Hills Cop TV show that never aired. Because, of course, just a few days ago on July 3rd, Beverly Hills Cop 4, sort of, I guess. Axel F premiered on Netflix.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're going to talk about things that never happened, almost like this episode.
Kat, yes, that's brilliant. Yes, that's 100% true. You're right. So we'll throw that in there too. Hey, before we get started though, speaking of Last Starfighter, a quick announcement. Later this week, listen for my chat with Lance Guest. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with the screenwriter for The Last Starfighter, Jonathan Betchel, who confirmed for us. Well, first he told us the story of how Last Starfighter came to be, how he, you know, with, I don't want to say without trying, but in a short order, he went from, not even being interested in writing screenplays to having Hollywood clamoring for his first screenplay, The Last Starfighter. But he also confirmed for us that he is moving forward with a sequel after finally untangling all the rights to the film. So then, I most recently now spoke with Lance Guest, the star of the film. Of course, played Alex Rogan, who gets to play the video game, at least in the movie that we just talked about. And of course, it turns out to be a recruitment tool for a planet that's in distress because they're being attacked by an enemy. There you go. So listen for that. He's a really cool dude. So laid back and regular guy. And
we should get to meet him in a couple of months. Oh, yeah. Right?
Yes.
Because the stars of The Last Starfighter will be present.
Right.
At RetroCon in Pennsylvania in September. Is that right?
That's right. September 7th and 8th, I believe it is.
Sounds right.
9th.
Something like that. Very early September.
Yeah, Catherine Mary Stewart and Lance Guest. And I told Lance that I'm going to bring this because this is travel size. You know, this post.
Yeah.
Which hangs on my recording studio here every time we record. See if I can't get both of their signatures on there. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and we'll be there too as well. Go to RetroCons with the S at the end, RetroCons .com to find out more information how you can come and visit with us and meet these stars as well, right?
Yeah, don't go to RetroCon without the S because that goes somewhere I know not where.
Yeah.
But it did not get me to the right place.
Is this like a whitehouse.com situation?
I don't know what it was, but it did not get me to where I wanted to go.
Did you know that in the early days of the internet that whitehouse.gov was the government and whitehouse.com was pornography?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't think RetroCon without an S.
I don't think, no. I don't
No.
think it's that situation. Yeah.
No.
No, whitehouse.com. Oh my goodness.
Was it all like a politically based, parodies?
No.
No.
I mean, as far as anyone ever told me. No, it was not. It was, I'm told it was just regular old porn.
So they were just trying to take advantage of the assumption that a lot of folks would,
Right. Okay.
wouldn't know the difference. And people were still learning what the three letters, suffix meant. And some people just defaulted to com everywhere they went.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was the wrong way to default in that case.
It's kind of funny to think back on that, right? I mean, because it was so important at the beginning that com was going to be for commercial, net was going to be for, what nonprofits, and edu was going to be.
Yep.
Now they ran out of space essentially. So they came up with a bunch of other suffixes.
Extra ones.
Yeah.
Yes. Brandon says he remembers the White House site debacle threw off a lot of kids trying to research U.S. government projects.
Bring your research to a screeching halt for about 8 minutes.
All right. Hey, I think we filled our porn quota for the summer.
I think so.
So I'm going to end that conversation there. Actually, in June, as of June, we did, but
We already filled it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We have surplus.
To avoid having to pay any additional porn content, let's get started on 1980s news. All right, hey, you remember just a short time ago we chatted about how our friends over at Dice Dungeons were bringing us the 80s Adventures, which is a kind of a, what would you say, an enhancement, a companion set of characters, rules, modifications, villains, etc., that you could use in connection with Dungeons and Dragons to add a more 80s vibe to your RPG. Well, as reported by Games Radar, and this just completely went under our radar, there's a new D&D rulebooks, the official D&D rulebooks that are coming later this year They also deliver on 80s nostalgia. So it turns out in May, again, although we missed it, the Wizards of the Coast released the cover art for the forthcoming 2024 Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide. And the art, let me see if I have my old ones here. Let's see.
This is the episode of Finding Things.
Unlike Kat's scaffolding, though, I have to take a look. So this one, look, this is, what edition is this? Anybody who, this is AD&D, but anybody who knows AD&D could just rattle off this book here. So this is the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player Handbook.
Yep.
Right.
And fans probably remember this Unearthed Arcana book.
Yep.
Ah, cool.
On a shelf on my set in the studio, I have all of my 80s Dungeons and Dragons books. The Monster Manual and the DM's Guide and the Player's Handbook and a bunch of modules and my dice. They're all sitting up there. They used to be in storage, and it wasn't until I built a studio with place to put stuff that I'm like, now I'm unboxing them. They're all coming out.
Oh, yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, my one was out because I got like a little frame kind of thing I could put it on. So it's like kind of a...
Nice.
Anyway, it turns out that the latest editions that are coming out, as I mentioned, later this year, whereas the previous Player's Handbook, for example, showed off nameless adventurers, oftentimes like even the examples I depicted you right there, they have this artwork that's inspired by the stories, the adventures you could take, in these campaigns. But it was never really someone specific that you could, meet in an encounter or actually play as. Well, in the latest edition, it's actually instead the Player's Handbook is depicting heroes across the game's 50-year history, including warriors that started life as 1980s action figures.
Do you have those, John?
I don't have those.
No.
I do have some. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering by your giggle there.
Well,
I covet those.
I'm giggling about the next part that's coming. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
I covet those figures from the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're steep.
As seen in an exclusive reveal by Game Informer, the revised book features members of the band known as Valor's Call, who recently appeared in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign, but started life as toys in 1983. And to sort of round out the history or include more of the history, they're actually seen fighting along an elven queen that was first introduced in Greyhawk, which is a world that was created for Dungeons & Dragons in 1972.
I've got my Greyhawk books too.
Is that right?
Oh. Yeah, I do. Wow. Yeah.
And that's not the only 80s throwbacks for the player's handbook, because also some of the art inside contains just some nostalgic moments, including one page that depicts grown-up versions of the 1980s D&D cartoon characters, who in this image are seen exploring a ruin as well-known monsters lurk nearby.
So this news depresses me a little bit.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Why?
Assuming you guys at some point watched the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon.
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
Every
Do
Saturday
you remember
morning.
the premise? Kat hasn't, but
Yeah.
The premise is these kids were on a carnival ride and got accidentally sucked into the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
With the theory that one day they can go home to their families. And yet, here in this book, they're all grown up and still in the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's dark.
So they never got out. And the one little kid is like 7, the one with the horns on his head. And in the artwork, he's like 30 years old. I'm like, this poor son of a bitch never got home. He never got out.
Never got laid.
Well, no, you could do that in Dungeons and Dragons. I've rolled those dice.
Oh. WhiteHouse.com.
What if they realized that the carnival ride was always a portal? Maybe they can go back and forth.
Oh.
Okay. I'm gonna try to make that part of my head canon so I feel better about this artwork.
That's an optimistic lie you're telling yourself.
Yes.
In addition to the player's handbook, as I mentioned, you're also getting the Dungeon Master's Guide. The art for the revised guide, as revealed by the Daily Mirror, also embraces the history of the RPG by focusing on a selection of more unsung characters. So much like I mentioned with the player's handbook, these other books as well. They just don't, they have, folks who aren't tied to the lore necessarily. But instead of featuring the most iconic villains of the game, the new Dungeon Master's Guide cover art kicks it old school as well, with Venger, who I was just talking about, is actually the villain from the 1980s D&D cartoon. And furthering the nostalgia, the single-horned Archmage appears alongside, I'm going to say Skyla. I'll be honest, I don't know how to say it, but I think that's it. Skyla and Warduke, who are 2 minor villains who were introduced in the first edition of the game. The covers were created by artist Tyler Jacobson, who's a longtime Dungeons and Dragons illustrator. Now, Kat also shared with us this video of this YouTuber who the channel's called The Character Sheet, talking about these covers. And it's clearly a young person.
Yes, he's so down on the olds, isn't he?
I know. It seems ungrateful to me. Like, this is why you have this shit, because of old people, dude.
Yeah, he's like, well, I guess they're catering to Gen X. And he mentions boomers, too, which confused me a little bit. Maybe you can say more about that.
Well, they could have played, I guess. But
it started in the 70s, so
they're like, well, these toys came out in this year. So you'd be at least 40 by now if you were around, at least 50 if you'd actually had them and played with them.
Yeah.
So?
And?
What's wrong with that?
Right.
Yeah.
And then he concludes that saying, there's some psychic damage for you old timers.
I did not appreciate that.
I got some psychic damage for you right here. Plus 2 throat punch.
I mean, I know how old I am, and I know what I played as a kid, so there's no harm done there.
No.
Yeah, and even as he suggests, well, I guess they're catering to these older generations, he says that it will, quote, impact the millions of players who weren't born when these characters were associated with D&D, end quote. Really?
I'm calling major shenanigan bullshit on this.
Yeah.
Up until now, the characters were nebulous, unnamed nobodies. So if they are now characters that you don't know, they're still nebulous, unnamed nobodies to you.
Yeah.
You're just upset they didn't pander to your generation's characters.
Yeah.
There's no harm if they're not anybody you recognize, because for decades, the people on the covers and the artwork, as you said, Will, they were just inspirational or aspirational characters that you might play or might encounter. So just because, you young punks don't know who these people are, just pretend they're nobodies like you used to think they all were anyway. Should be no impact. Yeah.
Karen says, wasn't one of them voiced by Don Most from Happy Days? I like how she says Don Most and not Donnie Most.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
They're close personal friends. Well, he's older now. He's Don.
Yeah, he does go by Don now at the conventions. It's true.
Yeah.
Marcus says his parents should have avoided rolling those dice.
Oh.
If you're a player and you're interested in getting your hands on these books, they'll be available. The Player's Handbook will be available in September, and the Dungeon Master's Guide will be available in November.
All right.
Well, I got to get the party. I got to get my party back together. What was that, John?
Said mine are still fine. I don't need the new ones.
Yeah.
My 30 plus, 40 plus year old books.
Right.
Sounds like you're
I can still play with it.
Oh, yeah.
In other 1980s news, according to the Washington Post, the glass blocks of the 1980s bathrooms are back.
I have a confession to make.
Oh, let's hear it.
I didn't know they ever left.
Oh, Florida.
Yes. Yep. My master bathroom has a wall of glass blocks.
No shit.
Like,
That's awesome.
of course I do.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome.
They're so pretty. I didn't even put a curtain over them. I just leave them raw because you can see the sun coming through. And when it's dark out, it's, you just see the lights at a rim around the glass.
Okay.
It's beautiful. I wasn't aware they were out of fashion though. And I was very gauche in my house.
Well, then you're poised to then really respond to some of the comments that they make here in the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Because they say, along with 1980s neon manicures and vintage 90s blazers, glass blocks are making a comeback thanks in part to a new fan base on social media. One Instagram reel showcasing several types of the retro building material has racked up more than 5 million views. That's what I'm doing wrong. It features cross-hatched blocks, frosted blocks, and fluted blocks, underscoring the fact that the latest iterations aren't always quite what you remember from your aunt's gaudy apartment or John's master bathroom.
Zing. Ow. Ow.
Now, according to the Washington Post, they have more than just good looks going for them, and they provide us with these reasons that what they refer to as the glass block renaissance, making sense. The first one, privacy and light. There's a very good reason the glass blocks come to be associated with luxury in the 80s and 90s bathrooms. They let in natural light without exposing inhabitants to the outside world. Look, that's true, right? I mean, I've been in people's homes that have those in their bathrooms. And I want to say one of them was like maybe it separated the shower even from the.
Sure.
Okay.
I've seen that too.
I still feel naked in there. Like, sure, I look like I'm pixelated now.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't feel any more or less vulnerable
Any
or
more private.
exposed.
Here's the thing, Will.
Yeah.
As long as you're just showering, it'll be fine. Your silhouette will just be okay. But if you're in there overusing the conditioner, probably they'll be able to see what's going on through the glass blocks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there you go. That's the real thing that I'm worried about. But yeah, and I saw in some of these images, these folks are using these glass blocks for an exterior wall.
Right.
Like in the bedroom. No.
Yeah.
I don't want any. I would keep the lights off all the time. And I'd have curtains over the glass block wall, defeating the purpose of it.
I could see, in that picture, I could see make out a chair pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see silhouettes, like you said, like pixely. Yeah. It's blurry. But yeah, like you could see a human figure doing something, walking or whatever you might be doing on the other side of those glass blocks. But it's anonymous, unless I guess they know you're there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Yeah. Wouldn't it be enough? Like, let's say you have a neighbor that you know they've seen your flesh-colored square boxes, moving about. I don't know. I don't know.
Send them a bill.
Yeah, I mean, I can't use a urinal in a public restroom if there's another guy in the whole row of them. It doesn't matter how close he is. And some weirdos come right up to you, even though there's a bunch of empty ones. Like, what are you? Go down there. But so I don't know.
Can I share with you? Can we use the same one?
It's busy over here. Just spread your legs a little wider. I'm a short fellow. I can.
We call that threading the needle.
Mm-hmm. Let's conserve space.
Yeah, ready? 3,
something.
2,
Single flush.
1. That's the future of conservation.
Our next Olympic event, synchronized urination.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. Another thing they say is affordability, which might be true. It says the cost for an individual project is highly variable, but the architects that they interviewed said that it's an affordable option. And they gave this example. They said that a glass block wall with labor and installation would typically cost about $30 to $40 per square foot. By comparison, a traditional glass wall would run closer to $100 per square foot. You know how much sheetrock costs and studs? I mean,
Yeah, right? Few 2x4s.
Whatever. Okay.
Am I the only one that forever I have seen, and maybe it's just in the South, glass blocks are always available and always cheap. And like as a craft item, I see people cramming fairy lights into them for Christmas time.
Oh.
And so their lights are inside of the block.
Yeah.
And then you plug it in and it's like this, pretty, because the same way it diffuses the light going through it, it diffuses the light going out from the inside.
Okay, wow.
And so it has these blurry, fuzzy lights in there. Is it just here? You never seen this?
No,
Maybe it's just a Florida thing?
I guess, since they're everywhere. I
it's,
guess.
It's got to be because of the qualities they're just attributing to these. In particular, the light. You live in a sunnier environment than we do in the north, So I wonder if that's part of it.
Yeah.
But if you have the lights in the blocks, what does that do to my nude body when I'm trying to hide now?
Those aren't used at the same time. You either have a wall of them,
okay.
or you have what they sell is like a single block that's filled with lights, and you plug it in. You put it on a mantle, and it's like a pretty shiny light
I
thing.
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad I never was embarrassed by my glass blocks and took them out, only to find they're back in fashion now. I'm going to put them back in. So.
You are.
Just stick it out. Everything old is new again.
The Washington Post also says that safety. They provide more safety. They says glass blocks can also enhance the safety of a structure. This architect, I assume, the quote says, quote, one reason you'd use glass blocks instead of just a window is you're trying to achieve a fire rating. That means we can utilize them in places where you wouldn't otherwise be able to put a transparent material. Because if there's a fire in your house, glass will just shatter, whereas the glass blocks will last longer. All right, hey guys, if there's a fire in my house, I want the glass to shatter.
You went out.
Let me the fuck out of here. It's like, gung, gung. Who put these glass blocks here? Gung, gung. I mean, it's a
and then
horrible
someone
idea.
outside can see your silhouette. Like Will is dancing by firelight in there.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Looking good, Will.
Help me, it's on fire.
Did you know glass blocks also provide great acoustic insulation? Can't make out what you're saying.
I'm just now learning that.
What? Yeah. And this will be the reason that appeals most to you, John, is the Washington Post says they're cool.
Mm-hmm.
So
they are cool.
Because they're sealed and have dead space inside, so dead air is an insulator. Heck yeah.
That's not good. I mean, okay, whatever.
That's good.
The glass blocks have an architectural history that is more cutting edge and timeless than their 1980s reputation might suggest. According to this one architect, they're a throwback to 1930s Paris.
Ah.
They were first used then, maybe?
Ooh,
Wow.
I'm fancier than even I knew.
Yeah. Yes, you are. I remember them in the schools that I went to. Oh, yes. Oh. I remember them in the grammar school I went to in the high school.
Yep.
Now, they were built before the 80s, so I guess they were on the cutting edge of something. That's where I specifically remember them most strongly from. In the stairwells, the windows in the stairwells were those glass blocks.
And then there was a fire.
Just picture like throwing a chair against it, trying to get out.
It won't break. These are so structurally sound.
Hey, honey, you know how we could save money and be cool? Remember when you said that? Steve suggests you buy them up, John. It could be a hot seller soon. I also think
invest in pork futures and glass blocks. That's my entire retirement is going there now.
And I think Steve's
Calling
also,
my financial advisor.
Steve's also watching me in my house as it burns. He writes, Will's using his conditioner again. No, I'm dying.
I'm glad that wasn't missed by someone.
Karen says,
thank you.
The shower in our master bathroom used to have glass blocks, but now it's clear. I mean, now they're clear blocks or clear glass.
So a window?
Maybe it's a clear.
With the blocks.
AKA a window. I just have a shower curtain in mine. Oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
She also asked, John, do you also have a toilet paper doll? Oh, you remember those?
Yeah, creepy
those were
things.
Creepy, yeah.
Macrame usually.
Yes,
To like,
yeah, I was going to say crochet, but I think you're right, yeah. I think
Whichever.
the skirt would cover it. And
the skirt would, yeah. Because what you do is you put the paper tissue on the plunger and then put the doll over top of the thing. And if you need a plunger, you got to strip that doll quickly and you're throwing toilet tissue and you're throwing a doll and you're cranking the plunger and then you're like, okay, let's reassemble this doll who looks traumatized on the floor.
After the doll's dropped into the toilet, to the horrors that are waiting below. Shake it off.
Just wring it out. Yeah. It's fine.
It's back to normal.
It's mostly water.
Brandon says, I've seen glass block walls between rooms that also have an open space as a window between rooms. What the hell is the point of that?
No, that's just to be cool, Brandon.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's just somebody that wants to live in Florida and can't afford it.
That's money to burn.
Or someone who wants to feel like they're, voyeuristic or something.
Right. Right. Honey, go in the kitchen while I'm in the living room. I'm going to watch you cook.
I'm concerned people can't tell what we're doing inside of our house. Could we change out some of these windows?
You know what I would do, I guess, if I had all that, is I would wear all like nude colored clothing all the time. So then when I'm actually nude, people wouldn't be able to know. I think that would give me a level of comfort in my mind, at least.
That's very interesting.
Why not just be nude? It's so much easier.
No, because then they'll know I'm nude if it's just nude during the nude times. Also, I'm going to walk around like this with things in my hand. So nothing seems abnormal.
with the plunger.
I got shake weights. I'm going to just get some shake weights.
What's Will doing? Oh, no. He always has those spasms.
Yeah. He must have a friend over.
They were no wonder.
All right, whatever. Oh,
we're definitely over our quota now.
I know. I'm going to get bills. I'm going to get the bills. It's a good thing we have supporters of this show.
That's what that Patreon money's for, to pay for the porn overages.
We need some more patrons. It's July.
Can we get the free nights and weekends porn? Like you did on the cell phone plan? After 9 o'clock, it's cheaper porn.
Could be. Scrambled.
Yes.
And here, finally, in 1980s news, the Axel F that never was. So, as I mentioned earlier, Brandon says Will's shaking those dungeon dice.
Yes, I'm just playing D&D.
Yes.
I'm shaking those dice.
Right. I'm going to get lucky tonight.
I'm rolling those dice.
Rolling a 20.
Come on.
So as I mentioned up top, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F premiered on Netflix on July 3rd, returning Eddie Murphy's fish out of Detroit detective to the screen 30 years after his last disastrous outing.
That was 3.
Like giving folks, we're going to give folks time to see it before we actually chat about the film and our thoughts about it. But I'll give you this, what I think is a promising review from Variety. They write, nostalgia when it comes to reviving an old movie series can be axiomatic. Every so often you see a genuine piece of nostalgia like Creed or the 2009 Star Trek reboot or the 2014 Godzilla. But then there's the kind of nostalgia represented by Beverly Hills Cop Axel F.
Is that good or bad?
Plotted like a generic police corruption thriller, lit with cruddy efficiency, pausing every 10 minutes or so for a light moment, the movie is no Beverly Hills Cop. So that sounds like a downer. But then they continue. it's better than the ballistic noise orgy that was Beverly Hills Cop 2 or the clunky retro mess of Beverly Hills Cop 3. So I guess we should be grateful, and I suspect a lot of viewers who grew up in the 80s will be. That's not bad to me. That's not a turnoff. I think that's going to be fine.
It seems kind of middle of the road.
It's not high praise, but it's something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like Beverly Hills Cop too, so.
It's all right. Yeah. And if this is better than that, well, that feels okay.
Exactly.
That's great.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys remember when you first heard the term prequel? For me, it might have been The Phantom Menace. Like maybe I never heard of the term prequel.
I believe that was
maybe
it.
that came around then. The concept of we're going to do a sequel that happened in the past.
Yeah, I might say it was Temple of Doom because I do remember.
Oh.
Really?
We
Okay.
talked about
all
this.
right. I hadn't heard it, so that's fair.
Right.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in one of the articles, I don't think it was the one we were talking about here, but in one of the articles I read, I think they coined a new term for sequels that happen way, way, way past the last one to intentionally invoke nostalgia. Have you seen this new term?
I can't wait to hear it.
No? I think it's brilliant. It's a legacy-quel. Legacy-quel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's Top Gun Maverick.
Right.
That's Axel F. That's coming the number 2 America. Right. That's the latest Ghostbusters out. Maybe kind of, I guess, a sequel that is so far past that it's really a nostalgia trap that also is a movie. I like that. I'm using it. Legacy-quel. I think it's great.
And you know what? In what it sort of suggests, I'm for it. I'm okay with that. To the extent that you've talked about, John, the best sequels are ones that are continuations that they're tied to the old, but they can advance it, bring in some new folks. That's fine. Yeah.
Did they make it up for this movie? I don't know, but I like it.
So in 1989, when Eddie Murphy was asked about a third installment for the film franchise, Murphy told the Rolling Stone, quote, "There's no reason to do it. How often can you have Axel Foley talk fast and get into a place he doesn't belong? Paramount ain't going to write me a check as big as I want to do something like that. In fact, if I do a Cop 3, you can safely say, ooh, he must have got a lot of money." Well, in 1994, we did, in fact, get Beverly Hills Cop 3, which was inexplicably directed by John Landis, who's known for sort of broad comedy, or certainly broader comedy than Beverly Hills Cop was. But it was written by Steven D'Souza. If you remember Steven D'Souza? I always remind you of this guy, and you guys don't remember until I tell you this. He was in that game we played of all the interconnected worlds, TV and movies. He connected a bunch of them because he's the screenwriter of Die Hard, and he wrote some other films and TV shows that wound up being tied together because of a fictional country he created, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so he wrote the screenplay, and he actually originally penned Beverly Hills Cop 3 to be like Die Hard at a theme park. And if you've seen the film, it is set in a theme park. But how he had originally written the script, ultimately the studio said, we can't afford to spend, I think it was something like $10 million on each ride we'd have to build to serve the purposes of the plot as you've written it.
Easier as a book or script.
And as a side note, Murphy received $15 million for reprising his role.
That reminds me of in our last episode, you played a clip where Eddie Murphy said, I didn't like the script, or I can't believe they showed me that script. But then
when we check, and I said, when do we start?
Yes.
He's like eager.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right, Kat. And he said at the time he was whoring himself artistically or something like that.
Yeah,
and that was for $1 million. So I guess he's able to negotiate higher rates in the 90s. By the 2000s, enough time had passed, or so the studios believed, that Paramount pivoted the franchise from the movie theaters to the new widescreen TVs that were starting to pop up in our living rooms in the beginning of the 21st century. With Murphy uninterested in bringing the franchise to television, show producers decided to center the show around Axel's son, Aaron Foley, who was to be played by Brandon T. Jackson. You've probably seen him in the first incarnation of the Percy Jackson films. He was in Tropic Thunder. He's a good actor. He's certainly funny.
He is. Yeah.
Well, this TV show wound up at CBS, and it had quite a creative pedigree. It was to be produced by Sean Ryan, who created The Shield. Certainly a wonderful and successful dramatic police procedural. And the pilot was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who, among the many films he directed, included the Men in Black films. Yep. And to establish the series as legitimate continuation of the film, which, was super important, Ryan and Sonnenfeld actually talked Eddie Murphy into reprising his role as Axel in the pilot episode. But what the producers hoped would be their pièce de résistance turned out to be more of a coup de grace, because as Murphy explained to IndieWire in 2019, the test audiences were thrilled to see him in the pilot. But as soon as he disappeared from the screen, they weren't interested.
Oh, man.
And the problem was that Murphy had no interest in being in any other episode. According to Murphy, quote, the studio thought I was going to be in this show because the lead was my son. And they'd said, and you're going to pop in every now and then. And I was like, I ain't popping in shit.
Again, unless he's paid enough, we've established, but probably not. Okay.
If you want to check it out, it's not terrible. It's fine, really. But Eddie Murphy pops in 45 minutes into the hour-long show, and he's in it for the remaining 12 minutes or whatever's left, 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But it's good, and Brandon T. Jackson is definitely fine as his son and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched. It's on YouTube, as you said. There's a link to it, and you can go and watch. And it feels like a humorous. It feels like Beverly Hills Cop. It feels like a tongue-in-cheek but cop drama going on in the background. And his son definitely has. It's written like Axel, so it's the snarkiness. There's a scene where they're talking to this, mega billionaire guy in his office, and he has a Donkey Kong machine. And I think the term is basically, I'm going to play Donkey Kong one more time, and before I get done entering my initials, you better give me information I can use. It's very kind of irreverent to other people, and he's just trying to get results in a snarky kind of way. It felt like Beverly Hills Cop to me. As you said, probably having Murphy in it reminded people he wasn't in it the rest of the time was the problem. Just having him not there would have been better.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's what I'm wondering is if it could have stood on its own and been enjoyed.
I felt like it could. Yeah.
But then once people have felt the the absence of Murphy, they just gave up on it. Oh.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, look, whatever. And I guess whether this next film will be good or not, we will see. Karen says it's next on her list for tomorrow to watch it. The Coming to America sequel was fun. Yeah, I think that was, I enjoyed the Coming to America. It was, what bothered me about it, I know we talked about this, was one of the things was, and it may be true of this Axel F too, I haven't watched it yet, is it's not shot on film anymore. They shoot these things digitally. And there's, I don't know, is it because we grew up watching things on film that automatically anything that's digital kind of seems fake to me, for lack of a better word coming to mind.
Sure.
Movies used to be a big deal. You only saw a movie at the movies unless you waited for them to, rent them later or whatever. But even then they looked like the movie you saw in the theater. But now with the advent of digital, as you said, and streaming, it's because of the lack of film grain or the lack of stock that it has, it just looks like everything else. So it doesn't feel special. That's the feeling that I get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point.
Wonder if we knew, this reminds me of something John said, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, I know. We were talking about theater and how theater is, live without a net. Anything could go wrong. And there's a sense to it. Not that you're hoping anything can go wrong, but it creates this sort of camaraderie of the shared experience, this excitement where we're all invested in the outcome together, and we appreciate the risks these folks on stage are taking. I wonder if either intuitively or because it was part of the zeitgeist with behind the scenes, vignettes and stuff that we had on TV, that we understood that it was expensive to shoot on film. You can only fit so much film in a canister before you had a cut. It was only a few minutes before they had a cut, which is why scenes would be, you had to cut scenes together. And so there was sort of more of that kind of, without a net feeling, in the sense that, I don't know, it's more guerrilla, or having I don't know, maybe I'm not saying it the right way, but that where digital seems so pristine, and I know they could just keep, what the time is what costs, obviously.
Yeah. Take 73, keep rolling.
And they do.
There's no cost to trying it again, right?
And sometimes they do.
Sure.
It's kind of like, when they use CGI for stunts versus in the 80s when they would have a guy just get in a car and, flip it.
Right.
Even though we're in no danger, there's something about it that makes it more, I don't know, visceral or, I
Visceral, I think, is a great word. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, that was 1980s. Jeez, please. Paging all retro hounds. If you're searching for your next nostalgia fix, look no further than Retro Days on YouTube, home of the flagship series Celebrating Yesteryear, hosted every Saturday by our very own John Reddick. Presents a topic from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, imbued with John's Reddickness and a healthy dose of humor, dripping with nostalgia. the show's dripping with nostalgia, not John, or maybe both.
His air conditioning's fine now.
Well, the AC was out.
Yeah, all right, there you go. Hey, come for topics like VCR board games and stay for experiences like the best 1980s sleepover ever. Head over to youtube.com/retrodays to catch up on past episodes, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the new episodes posted every Saturday. At Retro Days, they don't just remember the past, they celebrate it. All right, hey, as we mentioned, look, this isn't news except for the fact that it's the 40th anniversary. I guess that is news. Yay, it's the 40th anniversary of the Last Starfighter on July. What the hell's going on here? There you go, yay. Definitely go back and check out our interview with Jonathan Mitchell, and then listen later this week for our interview with Lance Guest. Hey, if you really want to go back, you can watch our video interview with Catherine and Lance. And that was a while ago. But I think together, we get caught of a good sort of picture of what was going on when they made the film and sort of experiences, et cetera, and so on. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the film. I know we've talked about it before. You guys, just if you would check in with your feelings about the movie, if you like it, you don't like it, you don't remember it, you haven't watched it, it's on your list.
I love the movie. I did not see it until
2021.
No, I think it was 2010, maybe somewhere around there. Yeah.
Oh, right, with your family, you were all somewhere
with the honorary uncle. Yeah, my kids wanted this uncle figure in their lives to watch some of the Marvel movies, and he said, "Okay, I will." But you need to watch a movie that I want you to see. And that's what he showed them. And that was my first time seeing it too.
And they took the deal?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
Yep.
And did he wind up watching a Marvel movie then?
Yes. We watched Iron Man.
Okay. Start at the beginning.
Oh, that's a good choice. The first one? It's a good choice.
Yeah.
I probably first saw Starfighter on VHS. So not in 84, but it would have been 87 through 90, somewhere in there when the heyday of rental stores. I was watching movies. I don't know why I didn't see it in the theater. We didn't go to theaters a lot. Mostly the drive-in with the family is all we did. So until I was older, I could go by myself. And so video rental stores, everything that was spaceships and aliens and big feet and whatever, I'm like, rent, because it was all new to me. So
now big feet as in multiple big foots. Right?
That's right.
You didn't have a thing for people with large appendages.
Yeah. It wasn't like Hobbit feet or
maybe by association, but that was not what I meant to say. No.
Okay. I'm certain I saw it in 84 when it came out because, as I've mentioned before, fortunately, my dad in particular is, both my parents like movies a lot, but my dad in particular loves movies. And so we would go often. And look, I've said this a number of times, and I was able to tell, Betchel this and Lance that, more than Star Wars, which they share a spine. These films, right? They are the Joseph Campbell. What do they call it? A hero that's refusing the call.
The archetype.
The art. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Gosh, 53, man. Just it's like on my birthday. Just whoa, what's going on? As they blow out the candles, certain words just. Yeah, so the story is a trope. It's an archetype that we've been telling for thousands of years. But in spite of that, this movie, and in spite of their efforts to distance themselves from Star Wars and Spielberg's films, which they did, they made some tweaks to the story because they didn't want to draw any comparisons that might make it harder for them to be successful. I connected with this movie and felt more inspired by it. Than those, in particular, because it was very grounded, certainly the beginning of the film, and it's grounded through the characters who have very real life earthbound challenges. You know, this following Lance Guest's character, Alex, he's trying to figure out what he's going to do in his future. You know, he's just becoming of age and an adult. I mean, so when I first saw this when I was a teenager, even though he was a few years older than me, these felt like very real things, you know, dealing with a girl that you like. Oh, my, you have to move away. All these things. So
trying to get the high score on your favorite arcade machine.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think for it to be rooted in all that, and then for this arcade game to actually turn out to be the, you know, Obi-Wan telling you he needs you to go and fight, the Empire. It was like, I felt like I could go home and accomplish anything. Like anything might be a secret test. Anything might be that gateway into a world where I would be more than I thought I was all this time.
If I could just wash the dishes a little faster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Someone would come and recruit me and take me away from all this.
Yeah, and that summer I worked in that kitchen, remember?
Yeah.
That's what it was, though. I was wrong. Yeah, that's all I had to do.
Yep.
So imagine all right, my excitement, where just a few words in the end credits of the movie tease the fact that we're actually going to get the video game that we see in the movie. And towards the end of the credits, you just have this phrase, video game available from Atari Inc. Well, as we mentioned, look, the film had every reason to be a blockbuster success, but it was in a year of blockbuster successes, you know, so it's ultimately, you know, when you run the final tallies, it's up against Ghostbusters and Karate Kid and Beverly Hills Cop, all these films. So on a budget of $15 million, it only made about $29 million. So it wasn't this, runaway success. You'll hear in my conversation with Lance, he expected that Hollywood was going to come a knocking after this film because everybody was telling me it was going to be huge. And none of these things ever happened. And among the many things that never happened was this arcade game from Atari. And if anybody was going to pull it off, it was going to be Atari, right? Because they already dominated the arcades and the consoles at home with the Atari 2600 that was introduced in the late 1970s.
And the home computers by then, too.
Yeah. And one of the things that Atari did with its games that were different than, what would you say, sprite-based games, John, I guess, was they had vector-based games.
Yeah,
and all you have to do is imagine the Star Wars arcade game or its successor, Empire Strikes Back, or Battlezone.
Tempest. Battlezone,
Tempest.
Sure. Yep.
By just drawing a line, I don't even know technologically how this works, but by drawing lines, instead of just having shaded areas of shape, let's say flat shape, they were able to create objects in three-dimensional space.
Yep.
And so the fact that this company was the one that was going to make this game thrilling. Now, I'll admit I didn't know all this back then, but I know this now. And if you remember in the movie itself, they show some scenes from the game.
Sure.
But they were created, in particular, just for those scenes. There wasn't actually
they were
playable game.
rendered to play on the monitor in the machine because at the time computers simply could not make a game look that good in real time. Right. So they had to kind of fudge it.
Gotcha.
So among its, like, the film itself had at the time cutting edge graphics for the in-game or in movie space battles. Then they had to do something cutting edge for this, this game that didn't yet exist.
Right.
But Atari figured out how to do it. And what they did was they leveraged, the technology that they had already built. The Star Wars game, for example, was already successful. So all they were going to do was another aim a reticule at something. Reticle.
Yeah.
Reticle at something and, shoot things. So it was going to be like that in that sense. But whereas Star Wars and those other games I mentioned use these vectors, they were going to use fully rendered polygons, which, again, these are just words maybe. But it was going to approximate what we saw in the movie itself.
Yeah. So the shorthand of that, Kat, is vector games look like a wireframe, skinny, bright color lines on a black background.
Yeah.
Whereas filled polygons, like flat surfaces, are filled in. You draw the triangle and then you fill it in, and you fill it in, and they're different colors and shades. So it has that, I don't know what, money for nothing. Video look.
Okay.
that is shaded polygon animation. So that look is what the Starfighter, which is pretty much what it looked like in Alex's cabinet.
Yeah, yeah.
And apparently this was based in part on some technology they had to develop for a game that's little known, iRobot, which I watched some scenes of it online. I can't believe this game existed in the 80s and I never played it.
It's awesome.
And we did have uploaded to YouTube a long time ago. I think it was by someone who actually programmed the game that never got released. I do have some footage from the game that we didn't get from Atari.
Huh.
And there's no sound, but you can notice it looks very much like the movie scene.
Especially like after the launch and we go to the HUD view.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
This is insane.
With the rotating orb in the corner to figure out attitude control. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this was going to be a playable arcade game. That's just, it would have seemed a leap. I mean, it seems very much like from this image that you're playing the movie version of the game. Mm-hmm. In order to do this, though, like I mentioned, they used some technology that they had already had been developing, and they instead of using I looked this up and I can't remember what it was. It was the Motorola, I want to say 6200 maybe processor, which was an 8-bit processor, which was like most of the games. They used the Motorola. There's my New Jersey coming out. Motorola 68,000 processor, which would become ubiquitous later in the decade with it's the same processor inside of the Commodore Amiga, for example, and the Sega Mega Drive, which is a 16-bit processor. So it's just a leap, as far as arcade games go, it was a leap. But according to arcadehistory.com, it was the expense as well as the faltering box office that discouraged Atari from ultimately publishing.
That was my question. So why not?
It turns out that because of the technology that would be inside of this thing, making it look so fantastic, each cabinet would cost approximately $10,000.
Whoa.
In 1984 dollars.
Yeah.
And they didn't expect any arcade owners were going to fork up that money. There's no amount of quarters that I think would.
You got to wonder if it had been Star Wars level, maybe they would have pushed forward. But even then, that would be a huge individual expenditure for any given. Only the biggest chain arcades could have afforded it, even if you built it. Mm-hmm. Because, you make your money back on $4 or $5 grand on a machine, 10 grand. It might take the life of the machine to break even. Why buy it? Yeah.
Right.
And so with the game having been 75% complete by the time the film, sort of faltered at the box office, the plug was abruptly pulled. Now, here's the good news. It turns out that even though we didn't get the original, a studio called Rogue Synapse created a faithful remake of the Last Starfighter's laser blasting action. And you could download it for free. It's playable on PCs.
Yeah, it is.
You just got to Google Rogue Synapse to find it. But you're going to have to build your own arcade cabinet if you want to play it like they did in the...
Yeah. You can play it on your computer, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
That group, Rogue Synapse, that's their thing, is making fictional games real. They made Space Paranoids from Tron. You can download and play Space Paranoids too. That was never a real game, but they wanted it to be real. And several other games like Death Race, that's notoriously difficult to emulate. They made a realistic version of that you can download and play for free. Look, these are IPs they don't own, so they make them and give them away, but they do great versions.
And no one's apparently suing them, which is even better.
Well, the arcade machine wasn't even the only version that got benched.
Is that right?
Well, Atari had the arcade machine rights. They actually had, back then, if you watch the Tetris movie, like you might have learned some of these, like you get the rights to port this to consoles. You bought the rights to port this to computers. You got the right to port this to handhelds. It was all different licenses. Atari had them all.
Wow.
They bought the whole ball of wax. And unlike the cost problem of the arcade machine, they had two games based on the Last Starfighter in development. One for the Atari 2600 that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And one for the Atari home computers. But then 1983 happened. And the video game crash of North America, Jack Tramiel came in and purchased Atari. He halted production on everything. Now, as a computer owner, I didn't know that because there was an early build of the Last Starfighter for home computers released, And when I pirated it, I just thought it was legitimate.
Yeah. Ooh.
So I did play that game, but years later, Atari resurrected both of those games. They changed the computer game to be Star Raiders 2. They just branded it with their own IP. And the 2600 game was abandonware. They didn't even know who wrote it. There was a pseudonym that someone named Solaris, like their handle that wrote it. They resurrected that game and released it as Solaris. That's what they call it.
Okay.
Like in 89 or so when they were running the 2600 Junior. So those saw the light of day, but not really. They got rebranded, but they never got Last Starfighter releases. That would have been fun as a kid to play.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can finally get a sequel to this movie. Maybe we could actually get a...
Maybe. We'll get some real games.
Yeah. You got to imagine,
Right?
it's got to be so cheap now to build that game.
Right. To do that technology, to make it look that way would be no problem.
We have more on our phone now. I mean, you could...
Exactly. Oh, man.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. In the sequel, that's certainly not the game anyone's going to be playing.
True.
Oh, okay.
It could be something else entirely. If in fact they are recruiting someone else, you almost want to follow that. Oh, well, the game is a sword in the stone. Maybe it's a computer game or it's a mobile phone game or something crazy like that. But whatever, if there's a game in the sequel, it's going to happen these days because it's no longer cost prohibitive and there's no longer a video game crash. Video games are a huge, huge, huge moneymaker, bigger than the box office, honestly, than the theaters themselves. So we'll finally get, and maybe they'll go back and give us the games they didn't give us before.
Good point.
Oh, you remind me, John. I had some ideas for the sequel. I thought maybe I'd reach out to Jonathan Betchel and pitch him. But I think he's got the script done already.
It's not too early.
All right, Jonathan, if it's not too late for a rewrite, I have some great ideas.
Tell him now and don't wait till the movie's done. Otherwise, it'll be like Caligula and that Best Defense movie. You don't want
got to
that.
work it in later.
It all centers around a rap group and some breakers.
Yeah. How did you know?
Oh, I know.
Get out of my head.
Because that's what's in your head. Yeah.
Well, I was since I know he will never probably take me seriously on this.
Lay it on us.
Or maybe he would. I don't know. We had a good chat.
Yeah.
Here's a tropey thing, right? Like I was thinking, all right, so Alex is in it, right? Because we know that he wants Lance Guest and Catherine Mary Stewart to be in it again, and they want to do it. And he joked that if he waits any longer, it's going to be their grandkids who are the next Starfighters and not their adult children.
Yes.
But what if Alex at the end of the movie, he goes off with Maggie, right? But maybe they do come back and they have kids and then Alex goes off again. And so it's like his father's abandoned the earth. And maybe he's got two kids, like one kid goes with him and his wife and becomes a starfighter. And the other kid stays on Earth while Earth goes to shit because people don't believe in climate change and all this other shit.
Ooh,
so he's pissed at his father going off to fight someone else's battle while our Earth is just going to shit. So the father has to fight maybe like one last battle before deciding to come back to Earth and, helping out. Maybe bring some alien
Save
technology.
the planet with a death burst.
Yes, I'm going to put you out of your misery. Death blossom.
The blossom. Except they're shooting ozone bombs that replenish the
life blossom. Get some.
That's what you should do behind the glass blocks, Will. Just flail around.
That's what I'm always doing.
But in the nude bodysuit.
Yes,
don't be really nude.
It's going to be one of those full ones too, where the face comes over,
Oh, yeah.
Picture it now.
No, that's the point. I don't want anybody to picture it. Brandon says the video footage of the game looks like what could have been a lower level and SNES game. Karen says, when is the Oregon Trail movie coming out? Ha ha.
They might as well.
I think it died of dysentery, Karen.
There we go.
All right. Hey, that was a show. Maybe we'll put our name on it even. I don't know. We'll see.
We ought to.
Well, that show, this show.
It was going to be this or no show. I mean.
This was brought to you thanks in part to our early
maybe they don't want their names on it.
Karen, is it okay?
All right,
can I say your name?
Too much. All right, forget about that.
Rick Parker and Karen Flieger. And thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success Level Patreon supporters, Matt Marino, John Henderson, Brandon Greer, Marcus Taylor, Tony Great, and Nick Guillory.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for helping support this nonsense. Because, look, we do the easy part. which is just talking about bullshit for an hour. You guys,
And
helping us do the hard part, which is paying for it to get it out there so other folks can hear it. And you proudly let us say your names every week, so that's fantastic.
Aww.
If you'd like to be a part of that group of fine folks and be acknowledged every week by this bunch of wackos here, please go to patreon.com/1980s now to find out how you can do that. Quite honestly, you could also join for free to see what you get anyway.
Just to see what you're missing.
Yeah, right now I have it all turned on so folks can see. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Hey. Next time, we're hoping there'll be more substantive news and less discussions about John's master bathroom. When we talk to you next time.
I
on night, we did, remember?
Come out of your mouth there.
That was class. About John's, which part? Oh, I said
you
master.
Said
John's master
bathroom.
No one would suspect Kat is the one who, on a percentage level, drags us into the gutter more than the two of us. Yeah.
For sure.
Anyway, all right. Well, Kat will drag us down to the gutter again next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Last blocks are back, baby.